Welcome to 60 Kvu Minutes. It's Sunday night, the most boring night of the week, and we're going to be listening to some Ethiopian jazz. Over to you, Magnus.
Yeah, it's going to be Ethiopian jazz, and it's going to be Getachew, Mekurya with the X and Ethiopian Hagare. That was Mr. Mekurya with the Dutch punk band The X. And that was my way into Ethiopian music when I discovered that X went in the 90s down to Egypt to do a tour, and then met these brilliant musicians like Getachew and Mekurya and brought them back to Europe and released some albums on like Terp Records. We're doing one more, Mr. Mekurya, Akalé Wubé. I'm afraid we got the wrong song there, because that was Samuel Beley and Anotesh Yarfu. Sorry for my pronunciation. We're going one more song with Mr. Mekurya, Akalé Wubé. That was the brilliant Getachew Mekurya with Akalé, Wubé.
So now let's go over to our correspondent in maybe Lund, maybe Stockholm, maybe somewhere where birds are being looked at. Jonas Ellerström. Hi, Jonas. Magnus has got a few things he wants to ask you about. But first, I'd just like to ask you, where are you at the moment?
I am currently on Kungsholmen in Stockholm. I should have been sitting at home in peace and quiet, but I got a bit delayed. So I'm walking the streets of Stockholm.
Ah, lovely stuff. And what are you planning on doing tonight? Anything special?
No, I'm cooking dinner for a couple of friends. That's about it.
Lovely stuff. Well, over to Magnus.
Ja. Hallå där, Jonas.
Ja, hej Magnus. Liten sak här. Alltså jag är ute och traskar på gatorna i Stockholm, så att jag har inte dikten tillgänglig förrän jag är hemma om en kvart, 20 minuter. Så att vill du stoppa in...
I take it in English. I have the poem both in Swedish and English, but so I can read them if you want.
Yes, please do that.
And I start to read first your poem in Swedish.
I think you just read in Swedish first and in English afterwards. Yes.
Yes. This is a poem by Jonas Ellerström called Åter från Etiopien. Nej, detta är inte det nya året. Jag har valt ett annat år. Ett äldre. Ett år med 13 månader. I vilka jag flyr undan klockor och kalendrar. Och upprättar min egen tid. Rummet vidgas. Visarna saktar in. Från Monoceros 2016. And now in English. Back from Ethiopia. No, this is not the new year. I have chosen another year, an older one. A year of 13 months, in which I flew from clocks and calendars and established my own time. The room expands, the hands slow down. From Monoceros 2016. So Jonas, could you tell me a bit about this 13 months thing in Ethiopia?
The Ethiopian year has 13 months, which may seem very odd because we are so little used to yes, in fact, odd numbers. When you think of it, however, it is perfectly clear that our year, every lunar year has, every astronomical year has 52 weeks. So that's 4 times 13. So it's perfectly sensible to have a year with 13 lunar months. Only, as we know, the lunar month doesn't fit exactly into a year. So we go by the 12-month year. The Ethiopians have 13 months. And I was so struck by the thought of this extra month to be given extra time. I remember writing the poem during a period when I had a lot to do. I was under a lot of stress. And this wonderful thought of being given an extra month was, it appealed so very much to me. So when we got...
Jonas, do the Ethiopians have a special name of extra month? Do you know
I do not. I am quite sure that none of their names for the months are the same as ours. The Ethiopian culture is so very wonderfully different from ours. Our names for the month are adopted from the Roman calendar, the Julian calendar, and so we have names after Roman gods such as Mars, and Ethiopia is something quite different. Imagine a country where you have 2 different languages and an alphabet for each of those languages. And so we have the usual Amharic language and alphabet, which is the most beautiful alphabet you've ever seen. You must have seen it on album covers, etc. Those wonderfully dancing letters.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And then you have, I think it is referred to as Church Amharic, which is the older language spoken in the monasteries and within the Ethiopian Church, which is practically, it's the oldest Christian church that has an unbroken tradition. And there you have another language and another alphabet. So everything is done the Ethiopian way. And I think that was one of the things that struck me as well. The country seemed to be outside of time. It was very peaceful traveling there.
Seems almost very, very ancient in some way.
Yes. It's ancient and contemporary at the same time, because really, the country doesn't seem to bother too much about what we refer to as modernity. Of course, there are cars. Of course, there are modern buildings, etc. But the heart of the country, the heart of the Ethiopian life, seems to lie somewhere else. And for a Westerner, Northern European like me, always hurrying from one place to another, that was a quite wonderful experience to more or less, you adopted a certain kind of life. Simply you didn't look at your watch or phone so often. I love that. I spent 3 weeks there, and I would have loved to spend more time, really.
And how long ago was that you spent 3 weeks in Ethiopia?
It was in 2015,
nice.
And I went there for two purposes. I had a friend of mine who is a painter of icons. He had been living on and off in Addis Ababa for a couple of years, and he was working at restoring wall paintings and also manuscripts of several very old monasteries. And so I went there to visit him and also to have a look at this tradition of icon painting that is the current in Ethiopia. And I just think I'll find, here I am in a peaceful part of Stockholm. I found myself a park bench to sit down on, and I've been walking uphill, so I'm probably slightly out of breath, but here we are. Oh yes. So, two main reasons for going to Ethiopia. To visit my friend and to see the Ethiopian monasteries and icons. And second, to watch birds, which is my main reason for going anywhere in the world, is to have a look at what special birds may be there.
So did you went out to the wilderness and did you see a lot of birds that you haven't seen?
Yes. We didn't spend much time in Addis. And so we went north from Addis and went to Lake Tana, and even out into the middle of Lake Tana, where our engine ran out of gas. So we drifted on Lake Tana for a couple of hours before, and it was almost getting dark. And this is a huge lake. It's like a small sea. But finally somebody saw us and picked us up and we could get back to shore. And then we went south from Addis, basically along the beginnings of the Rift Valley, which goes all the way down to the Kenyan border. We didn't go that far. We didn't have time. We just planned on 3 weeks, and everybody thought, also a couple of friends of mine went with me, that we would have wanted to stay longer. But it was also for when this is a music program, let me tell you, for the ornithologist, Ethiopia is a wonderful country. It's got very high mountains, so the only true alpine habitat which you've got in Africa is to be found in Ethiopia. So we went above the tree line, and we have, for instance, very, very impressive vultures. But once again, this is a music program. So now start asking me about Ethiopian music.
Enough about birds and the wilderness. So I'll ask, when I contact you, Jonas, I asked a bit, do you have any connection to the Ethiopian music? And you wrote that at the airport, you get hold of a cassette from some kind of janitor or cleaner. Could you talk a bit about that?
We were forced to. We were sitting waiting and rather peacefully waiting, and not this very stressful kind of waiting that you have here in Europe, but and a cleaner in the background. had a small cassette radio, and he was blasting African, kind of James Brown-like African funk. It was absolutely lovely, and it was sung in Amharic, and I was so taken with this music. So after listening to it for it would have been half an hour or more an hour, so I went over to him, and by sign language and some English, I managed to trade. I think he got a T-shirt from me, and I got a cassette from him.
Sounds lovely.
And it was a home-recorded cassette. It had no names of the artists, no names of songs. There was something written on it in Amharic, which I still can't read. I've kept the cassette.
You still have a cassette?
Yeah, I still have the cassette, and it's a lovely memory. And that is what I thought of when you called me. But there is actually one other. I did not come across the Ethiopian jazz that you are playing, and that a select few of my friends are also into Ethiopian jazz. And thank you for the links you sent me. Quite wonderful music. But one more thing that has to do with music during our travels. Outside of Addis, I think to the south of Addis, you come across the remnants of a small Rastafari colony. You will remember that it was the dream of Jamaican Rastafaris to go back to Africa to do the exodus. That is
the thing.
Yeah, it's the topic of a Bob Marley song. To once again be under the peaceful rule of Haile Selassie. And Haile Selassie once visited Jamaica, but he just got to Kingston Airport and descended from the airplane and discovered there was an enormous crowd of people receiving him, not like a foreign head of state, not like a king, but like a god. And this was very understandably too much for him. So he just ordered the plane refilled with fuel, and then they took off again.
Lovely story.
It's a wonderful story. But there was a Rastafari colony, the beginning of the exodus outside of Addis, and the village is still there, and you still find the Jamaican flag there, the red, green, and gold.
So it was Jamaican people in the colony?
Yeah, just some Jamaican people came there and tried to establish what is basically a kind of a peaceful settlement, a peaceful, religious, ganja-driven reggae settlement in Ethiopia. It was incredible. Somewhere, either I or Elizabeth should have some photos of this place.
Which would be lovely to see that photo. Yeah.
But these two memories of the funk playing janitor and of the nowadays very silent reggae village outside of Addis, those are my main musical memories.
It's a fantastic stories. So I think I have to go further with the program here, and the next song I want to play is Alemayehu Eshete, the Elvis of Ethiopia. Have you heard of him?
I have not heard of the Elvis of Ethiopia.
He died in September now, so in 80 years old. So the next song is going to be by Alemayehu. It's hard to pronounce this. Alemayehu Eshete with Nei Nei Welba. Thanks a lot, Jonas.
Great, thanks, Magnus. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. Lovely. Bye-bye.
Himmi guarda tolona Hailoga cibo guarda un tolona loga cibo guarda un tolona Gariba bonne nanchigo bere Fensker gariba bonne nanchigo bere Zuriat be balbojina digezare Inem le ungo pere le ungo kupa Inem le ungo pere le ungo kupa Yemer bene jeferen belweleva Oh, go pere o saite Siriu churupa Alboshinargiu en belweleva Gopereo saite Siriu shurupa Alboshinargiu en belweleva Nanchigo bere Teskar gariba bonne nanchigo bere Zuriat be balbojina digezare Inem le ungo pere le ungo kupa Inem le ungo pere le ungo kupa Yemer benin jeferen belweleva Oh, go pere saite Siriu shurupa Alboshinargiu en belweleva Gopereo saite Siriu shurupa Alboshinargiu en belweleva Cibo guarda un tolona loga cibo guarda un tolona guarda un tolona guarda un tolona guarda un tolona.
That was Alemayehu Eshete, also known as Ethiopian Elvis, and he also played the several genres like jazz and rock and soul and other things. And he recently died in September the 2nd this year, unfortunately, in the year 80 years old. And you listen to 60 Minutes of Kvu on Trimella Radio, and we have Ethiopian jazz and beyond. And we go further with Mulatu Astake. was Mulatu Astake with Grirma. And Astake is maybe one of the most famous jazz musicians of Ethiopia. Still going strong, born in 1943. I can also recommend this fantastic documentary that you can see on YouTube called Ethiopian Revolt of the Soul from 2017 filmed by Maciek Bucznak. And it's about this music activist and field recorder almost called Francis Falsetto from Pontier in France. That's in early 80s he hear Ethiopian music for the first time and went really into it and going to Addis Ababa and Ethiopia trying to sign some of the artists. But in the 80s it's a dictatorship, and so it can't how to travel to America to talk to with musicians in exile. But it's hard for him to sign the artists. So in the 90s finally he get a couple of records out. Really good documentary. We're going further with Mela Mohmoud Ahmed.
Yeah. ገባው መላ መላ ኧረ መላ በሉ ችላት በሉ ወይ መላ 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 ምን አይነት ፍቅር ነው አንጀቴ የሚበላ ምን አይነት ፍቅር ነው አንጀቴ የሚበላ መላ በሉ መላ 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 ላታስው መላ 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 በሉ መላ 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 ላታስው መላ መላ በሄደበት አገር መላ መላን ሆድ እንዳይልሰው መላ መላ ብቻ ነው መላ መላ ያገሳው ደረቴን መላ መላ ብቻ ነው መላን ያገሳው ደረቴን መላ መላ መቻጥቻው ካለው መላ መላን አንድ እንጀራ ራቴን መላ መላ ኧረ መላ በሉ ችላት በሉ ሌባ ነው ቀጣፊ መላ መላ የሚለው ጠቅላላው መላ መላ ሌባ ነው ቀጣፊ መላ መላ የሚለው ጠቅላላ መላ መላ የሰው ልጅ ሲያጣ ነው መላ መላ ሁሉም የሚጠላው መላ መላ የሰው ልጅ ሲያጣ ነው መላ መላ ሁሉም የሚጠላው መላ መላ በትካዜ ብዛት መላ መላ የሚያከረክረው መላ መላ በትካዜ ብዛት መላ መላን የሚያከረክረው መላ መላ ግራ የገባው ነው መላ መላ መላቶ ይቀረው መላ መላ ኧረ መላ በሉ ችላት በሉ ተሻግሬም ልፈልግሽ መጣ ወጥቼ ካገሬም አንቺን ላግኝ ብቻ ጦሜኑ ያድሬም እንዴት አለሽልኝ አንቺ ፍቅር ፍሬም አንቺ ወጣት የለችም ቢሉኝ ሟች ነበርኩኝ አንቺ ወጣት የለችም ቢሉኝ ሟች ነበርኩኝ አካሌ ደሞ ቆሜም ተቀምጬም ባለሁበት ቦታ አስታውስሻለሁ ጠዋትም ሆነ ማታም በጣም አስቸገረኝ የናፍቆት ትዝታ አለሁልህ በይኝ ፍቅሬን ያለኝታ አንቺ ወጣት የለሽም ቢሉኝ ማች ነበርኩኝ አንቺ ወጣት የለሽም ቢሉኝ ማች ነበርኩኝ
Two songs in a row with Mohammed Ahmed. Going forward with Grirma Béyené.
ትወጂኝ እንደው አሁን ንገሪኝ በጥርስ የሳት አታመላልሽኝ ትዝታሽ ክፉ ነው ክንፍንፍ ያረጋል እውነቱ ነግረሽኝ ባውቀው ይሻለኛል ትወጂኝ እንደው አሁን ንገሪኝ በጥርስ የሳት አታመላልሽኝ ሰማይ መሬት ሆነ ቢገለበጥ እንኳን ተሳፍሬ አርፋለሁ በአንቺ ፍቅር ለታ ትወጂኝ እንደው አሁን ንገሪኝ በጥርስ የሳች አታመላልሽኝ ትወጂኝ እንደው አሁን ንገሪኝ በጥርስ የሳት አታመላልሽኝ ትዝታሽ ክፉ ነው ክንፍንፍ ያረጋል እውነቱን ነግረሽኝ ባውቀው ይሻለኛል ትወጂኝ እንደው አሁን ንገሪኝ በጥርስ የሳት አታመላልሽኝ ሰማይ መሬት ሆኖ ቢገለበጥ እንኳን ተሳፍሬ አልፋለሁ በአንቺ ፍቅር ታንኳ ትወጂኝ እንደው አሁን ንገሪኝ በጥርስ የሳች አታመላልሽኝ
Maybe notice this sounds more modern and it's an old guy called Grirma that recorded quite recently, a couple of years ago, in this brilliant series of record called Ethiopian volumes, and this was volume 30. So there's 30 volumes of this lovely music. And we go next to Orchestra Ethiopia with Eshete. this show, 60 minutes of Kvu with Ethiopian jazz and beyond, with the Swedish free jazz musician Gustafsson going down to Ethiopia, where he met several musicians. I play a part of that song here called Barrow 101B. Thank you for listening to 16 minutes of Kvu with Ethiopian jazz and beyond. And this is some part of a Barrow 101B with Magnus Gustafsson and several Ethiopian musicians. It's a long song about no hands.